what does it mean about the universe that we live in that like these proteins are predictable? Have you
Yeah.
guys thought about that? That's such a
Yeah.
weird thing to think about.
Right. But I also think like we wouldn't be here otherwise, because
Hmm.
there's got to be some, ability for these things to self-organize, or else it wouldn't happen. But the
Right.
crazy, I don't even have my head fully wrapped around how complicated proteins are, because the three-dimensional folding space and the fact that there's just umpteen, you know, trillions and trillions of ways that these things can fold on each other, and how it used to take a PhD student like their entire doctorate to get to the point where they could just do one protein. They're like, oh, hey, this is how this one folds. Give me a doctorate. And now, is it 2 million or 200 million? I mean, something insane that AlphaFold has come up with. So they've just completely rewritten the script.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dylan, let me know. I'd love to get a little bit into Tesla. Dylan, do you have any other questions with AI, or should we dive into Tesla for a little bit?
Yeah, go for it. I mean, I got plenty of things, but Tesla fascinates me, and you've got, he has a lot more knowledge than I think
Yes.
you and I in that
I've been
particular
following
topic. So
this
we'd
space
love
for
to.
quite a while. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'd love to hear some insights.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, what are the biggest things? Because we don't know as much about Tesla. They seem to not publish as much stuff, so you can't go and read a paper
Right.
that they've published. What's happening with the robots? I mean, we're seeing they're dancing now, right? So, and it sounds like they're learning it from TikTok or video, from at least from what I hear.
Right.
When, like, yeah, just I don't even know what to ask. What's on the pipeline? What's in the pipeline here?
Well, I think it's worth, like, all of this comes out of Tesla's work on full self-driving autopilot
Mhm.
autonomous driving. That started around 2015 or so. So it's about a decade ago. So it's been a long quest that they've been on. And at first, Andre Karpathy came in very early in this process, and he helped to build the team. He's a super nice guy, by the way. And they worked for a long time, essentially building out a giant heuristic pile. So it's just if-then statements for hundreds of thousands of lines of code. So it's like, if it looks like this, then do this. If it looks like this, then do this. You can just imagine how complicated that would get. Because even just something as simple as a stop sign looks different from every single angle you can look at it. And if the light is slightly different, or if the sun's behind it, or X, Y, Z, it doesn't even matter. So they, I think it was like early 2023, so just about 2 years ago, they were like, look, let's scrap this. Let's go to a neural network end to end. We'll just do it like that. And that was sort of the major unlock. And it took them obviously 2 years to redo all of this, but they threw away 300,000 lines of code, at least according to Elon Musk. They threw away 300,000 lines of code, and now it's just a big block of neural network. And my assumption is that because they've talked about this before, it's not just a neural network. I would assume it's a bunch of input stuff for the cameras and whatnot, and the inertial measurement units and everything. So you've got these inputs, then you've got like different neural networks, and then probably some sort of big one in the middle, maybe a mixture of experts kind of situation. We don't know because they don't tell us. And then out on the other end of it, they have probably a bunch of different heads, different like possible things that it could do. For example, braking, steering, but also just things like, hey, I don't know what's going on right now. Maybe I better loop this back in again and ask a question of the network. So again, we don't know exactly how it's doing all of this stuff, but they specifically in their last CVPR papers that they presented, which was all the way back in 23 now, so it's been like 2 years, but they talked about using transformers. They talked about creating sort of like a language, a grammar of lanes and things, so that it actually looked at the lanes. And so let's say you come to an intersection that has 2 left turn lanes, a go straight lane, and then a go straight and a go right lane and a go right lane or something. It's a big complicated intersection. And then all of that other stuff feeding across it. It actually would grammatize that. It would turn it into kind of tokens like a language. And it would then look at that language and it would say like, well, given this, what's the most probable outcome of this thing? And it'd be like, oh, I got to go here. So it actually kind of looked at, so this is just one little piece of it, but it would look at driving kind of like a language model. And it would say like, we'll go with what the most probabilistic output. I know they also do Monte Carlo tree search, because they'll do things like they'll project out into the future. If the car goes here versus here versus here, what the likelihood of what's going to happen? And it will make decisions based on that and adjust and then do tree searches. The thing that just boggles my mind is not that they can do this, but the fact that they can do it on basically a laptop, right? This thing's sitting
Hmm.
in a car. Now it's a little more hefty than that. It runs, I think it runs on the order of 100 to 150 watts. So it's a substantial chunk. So it's more like a desktop machine, but still, I mean, that's nothing. You look at these data centers like ChatGPT, when you ask it a question, it goes out and it kicks it over to like 100,000 GPUs or something, right? Or not that many, but like obviously yours is probably on one GPU, but I'm just saying you've got these massive, massive data centers, whereas the car is driving in real time, 36 times a second. It's updating itself on essentially just a personal computer equivalent piece of hardware. That part just like, that's pretty
Yeah.
mind
So, so when my car wants an update, am I essentially downloading a new neural network and it's like deleting the other one off the kind of
Yeah.
PC that sits under my seat and then
Yeah.
replacing it? And if so, what does the Dojo supercomputer do and how does it all fit
Oh,
together?
so that's all. The Dojo supercomputer is a training computer. So that would be so you talked about how Google and NVIDIA were sort of competing. You've got the TPUs versus NVIDIA's gigantic ecosystem. Well, Tesla's Dojo is another competitor, if you want to call it that. I mean, it's only theirs privately. They don't ship it to anybody else. And there's a question of how well it's doing right now because it seems to have kind of stalled a little bit. But it's a training chip. It's not a driving chip. So it's part of the giant training cluster. Because in order to create something that drives well, it's all about the training, right? You just in order to distill a tiny, tiny little model, you have to like go crazy training it. So they've got which one is it? Cortex or Colossus? I get them mixed up. I think Colossus is the XAI one, and Cortex is
Hmm.
the one that's in Texas. But anyway, Cortex is on the order of 50 to 100,000 GPU cluster with some Dojo in it, I think, but mostly NVIDIA stuff. And they just run these training things. So when they were fine tuning for Austin to do the Robotaxi rollout, they were updating, probably on almost an everyday basis. They were rolling out new versions of the trained software that they could look at. So, for a long time, they said that they were compute constrained and they could only train so fast. But according to several people in the AI team, they're not compute constrained anymore. So they can just if they can collect the data and if they can figure out what the new training one should look like, they can just kind of do it very, very quickly. So that's really impressive. But yeah, but Dojo has nothing to do with the actual driving. It has to do with the training part.
Interesting. And so you mentioned like Monte Carlo tree search projecting into the
Mhm.
future. Like, first of all, I'm so curious because like, where do you find this information? I feel it's like so hard to find. Is it just like bits and pieces from interviews? Like,
Yeah, yeah. So that one actually came from, there was a CVPR, and I can't remember for the life of me what that stands for. It's computer vision something. Anyway, it's a conference that happens every June. And
hmm,
unfortunately, I don't believe Tesla was involved in it this year. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. And I'm pretty sure they weren't in it last year, but in 2023, they specifically talked about that. They talked about the tree search and they talked about the lane language. Actually, I think that was their AI Day 2022. So up until about 2 years ago, they were pretty open about all of this stuff. But the
hmm,
problem is, I think it wasn't so much American companies, but I think that Chinese autonomous driving companies were like, thank you.
yeah.
They were like, we'll take all that information and we'll use
Hmm.
it. So they kind of shut up. And it's unfortunate for those of us who are following this because we're like, oh man, I want to know more. But they really have become much more like circumspect about it. The one thing that we do know though is that there is an alpha version of whatever full self-driving 14 or whatever the next version is going to be that has 4.5 times more parameters. So if the current version has 1 billion parameters, this is like 4.5 billion. And
Hmm.
most importantly to me, because I've complained about this ever since I've started driving full self-driving like 4 years ago, the context window, the problem with it right now is it works really well, but it has a tiny memory. It's like got the memory of a fruit fly. So if you're someplace, it's like it's already forgotten what it was doing. And I kind of liken it to like you're like behind the wheel and somebody puts a blindfold on you and they start, they like reach over with the steering wheel and the gas pedal. And then all of a sudden they take off the blindfold. They're like, drive. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
So the car can sometimes do that. It's just like, holy crap, what's going on right now? But supposedly this 4.5x parameters gives them 3 times the memory window. So
Hmm.
I'm thinking that's going to give them somewhere around 30 seconds of memory of a context. So you think about the context window of 128,000 characters or tokens for ChatGPT or whatever. This gives it that same equivalent thing. It's got a window now where it's got, oh, I know, I remember what was going on. And actually, that guy's an idiot. I'm going to kind of avoid him because he looks like he's drunk or something. He's like,
Hmm.
or I need to get over in these 2 lanes over, and I'm going to do that now
Hmm.
because this looks like a good time. Instead of,
Yeah.
I'm sure, Dylan, you've had the experience
I
of
can
the car.
attest to that. Yeah.
It's like
Well,
all of a sudden you're
most
like,
of
I need
my-
to be 2 lanes over that way, and I'm
Yeah,
not
like
there
most
yet.
of my takeovers are not to like avoid hitting a pole or something. It's
Yeah.
like, why are we going in the left lane when the
Yeah.
exit's in like 1/2 of a
Yeah.
mile?
Yeah.
Like, stay
Yeah.
where we are. It's
Right.
more me just saying like, what kind of driver are you? Think ahead a little
Exactly.
bit.
But I think that it comes down to the driver. It's like the blindfolded driver, and you just take the blindfold off, and it's like, it's like, oh, I got to get in the right lane now. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I can't see more than 30 seconds into the future.
Yeah. So anyway, I think, but the Monte Carlo tree search, I think, is really cool. That bit of evidence was for sure because they actually showed a simulation, and it showed the little like strings going out, going like, blah, 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 and like deciding which one was the best path to take from it. So that's not speculation. That's for sure.
That's really interesting insight because I definitely feel how the GPS knows where I'm going and the car knows the last 30 seconds, and there's something in
Right.
between there. That's
I don't think
not
the car
being
does not
filled in
currently know.
correctly.
It does not
Or
know
maybe
the last
10
30
seconds,
seconds.
yeah.
It maybe not even. It maybe only be 5, but it used to be like 1. It's gotten bigger over time. But yeah, so that's what I'm saying. This new version that they still have to train and validate and everything, which will probably be FSD 14. That one should be even better. So remember those 9s, right? We were talking about that and how each one of those 9s is just a massive effort. This should help them get like another 9.
Yeah. Is there any large language model capabilities, do you think, coming down the road? Because I would love to just be able to say to my car,
Yeah.
like, can you get in the right lane or
Yeah.
slow down? Like, watch out for that car. Like, things like that seem so natural, and there's no
Right.
way to communicate it right now.
There is evidence that XAI's Grok is going to be integrated into Tesla's software stack. So there's a guy, Green the Only, on X. I don't know if you guys follow him, but he's amazing. If you want like really detailed stuff, he literally like opens up the boxes, the hardware, the full self-driving hardware, and like gets inside and reverse engineers it and goes like, oh, I found code that says that Grok's going to be in there. So they're clearly thinking about that. They haven't announced anything, but I think that will be a good day. I will love the fact that I might go to a new town and be like, I'm kind of hungry right now. And it could, instead of just going like, here's what Yelp suggests or something, it could actually go like, oh, John, I know you, and I know that you like Thai food and stuff. And there's a really highly rated Thai restaurant that's over here, and I can call ahead and get a reservation for you and blah, 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 right? That will make the experience so much nicer. So hopefully that's coming soon. I would love that.
Have you guys seen the Mark Rober Tesla crash test where he made like what's his name, the Coyote Wiley thing, like a fake little road, and the Tesla? I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't bricks or anything. I think they just had like a little cloth or something like that. Have you guys seen that test?
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
about the whole conspiracy and everything. Yeah.
I
What do
know.
you guys-
I know. A
Yeah.
lot of people repeated it, and nobody could make it happen. So
Right.
there were suggestions that he faked it. I don't know. I didn't repeat it myself, but it was interesting.
Yeah, or the blue, the little blue line goes away right before he hits the wall, which some people are like, did you turn it off so you'd hit it? But other people are saying like, does Tesla's self-driving know when it's going to hit a wall and turn itself off so there's no legal liability? There's a weird stuff going on there for sure.
I think one thing to put into that, to insert into that conversation, is that Tesla will counts as an intervention, or sorry, it counts as an accident, anything where you disengage it within 5 seconds of the accident. So if you're driving and it did something like that, it would still count that as a Tesla full self-driving accident. So I think that's good. I mean, that's conservative, so that it can't go like, oh, it turned off. I had nothing to do with it. It's like,
Yeah.
So yeah.
But
There's
you guys
another
were
incident that happened recently where this the car veers off into a telephone pole or a tree, like right off the road. Did you guys see that one?
I think I
there
heard
was
about it. I haven't seen the footage.
Yeah, there was I did an analysis of it. The best I can think of is that the person like kind of jerked the wheel, because you can actually, there's like he requested information and he swears that he didn't disengage. But of course, an accident, 5 seconds before an accident, if you're going to remember perfectly, probably. But anyway, so Tesla actually literally sent him the data, and it shows the steering wheel being torqued, and then it tried to correct itself and then torqued really hard. So it looks like the guy actually pulled the steering wheel and jerked it over to the left, and then it like crashed. So anyway,
You know,
he was fine.
actually,
That was good.
I actually was in self-driving when I got hit. I was on
Oh
the freeway.
no.
Yeah, I was on the freeway and it was just like really crowded. So we came to a
Yeah.
complete stop and I was just in self-driving mode, not moving because the car in front of me wasn't moving. And
Right.
then 3 cars back, one got hit and then it pushed the other forward.
Right.
And then I got hit very, very gently from the back and my car didn't get pushed forward enough to hit the other car. So I showed the police officer the video and I always wondered, I was like, that's so weird. Like, I wonder like
Yeah.
who's liable or whatever. Cause
Right.
I didn't,
Oh,
I
I
was
happen
just
to
sitting
know.
there,
I happen
you
to know
know?
this.
I-
You're still liable if you'd hit the guy in front of you. It would have been your fault, which is
Okay,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily I didn't, so I wasn't at fault for anything. The guy in the back took
Yeah.
full responsibility, but still
Right.
interesting. I was just in self-driving when it
Well,
hit.
but
So I
that
was like,
again is that's why I'm saying the world like you can never get to 100% safety because you were doing everything right and somebody like hit you. You know, you're just sitting there and you get hit. So it's like, what are you going to do about that? But anyway, I'm glad it was very gentle and not anything worse. than
yeah,
that.
everybody
Yeah.
was just fine and everything, but
Yeah.
it was fascinating.
Was this
Yeah.
on the streets of LA or something?
Yeah, mean streets
Yeah.
of Las Vegas.
Yeah. Oh, Las Vegas. That's right. Las Vegas. So
Too
Yeah,
many drivers from everywhere. Some from Utah, some from California.
Yeah.
There's no pattern to it. We
Yeah.
don't know.
yeah, I used to live in the LA area. And so like, you know, that you're doing 75 and all of a sudden it's 0 and you're like, whoa, you know, so that,
Yeah.
that kind of thing happens very frequently there.
All right, Dylan, go ahead. Do you have any other questions?
Well, we can move on to like you're kind of doing the startup thing and you're teaching
Mm-hmm.
at a school. So I was kind of curious. It seems like the golden age for entrepreneurship in some ways. A lot of things can be disrupted with AI tools, and we're just starting to get to the future of like APIs and those kind of things. So how did you kind of come up to the conclusion that you wanted to dive into the startup space? Like what was the fit and how are you assessing that? What can other people do to maybe build companies at this point?
So, so my history is that I kind of fell into teaching. My dad was a university professor, and so I guess it was just like the obvious thing to do. I went to grad school. I have a weird history because I have an undergraduate degree in physics, and then I have a master's and PhD in English literature, and then a master's in AI. And I got my PhD in English, went to teach in English. This is why I moved to LA. I moved to Thousand Oaks and I was going to go teach English, and it just so happened to be the late 1990s. And they were sort of mid 1990s. Anyway, the dot-com bubble was just happening. So everyone was like, oh my gosh, multimedia and internet and web and stuff. And I was like, I'll do that. I'll take over and I'll run that because I'd always been interested in all of that kind of stuff. And so I just ran this program for several years and then bounced a couple of more universities before I got to the University of Georgia. But I got a PhD in English and almost never taught any English classes. It was always classes in game development, computer simulation, 3D animation, script. I do like a lot. I love my script writing classes. I teach that a lot. So that is kind of English related. And then when I went back and got my master's in artificial intelligence, I started incorporating that into classes and even taught some specific classes about AI and the creative arts. And so my personal love is always doing artificial intelligence in a world that doesn't have definite answers. So everyone's like, oh, look how well it did on this math benchmark. I'm like, yeah, but that's relatively easy because there's, the answer is 42, right? I'm like, how do you answer something when it's like, is this color of blue better than that color of blue? I don't know, right? I find that fascinating. I think that's a really interesting philosophical and practical problem. So, and it's open-ended. So anyway, so that was what got me interested in doing a startup because I was like, I want to explore that. And that's kind of why we even named it the name we did, because Artomatic is like, it's automatic art. It was kind of this, what's that called? Portmanteau.
Yeah.
I was like, I can remember this word, like the idea of putting these two together. So, and plus the fact it sounds like Automatic for the People, which is like the REM album. So,
Perfect.
Anyway, yeah, coming from Athens, it seemed to have to happen. So anyway, I'm a big fan of the name. I don't know if anybody else is, but I like it. But so the idea was, can we create really fascinating generative AI work in the more artistic space, in the more creative space, not in the math or coding or anything like that. The irony, of course, is that we have to do a ridiculous amount of coding to be able to make that stuff work. So we're working very much in the left brain sort of like coding end of things and working for the right brain people. But that's the goal.
And what are your students coming to you with right now? Like the ideas, or like how are you recommending they get them off the ground?
Yeah, since I'm not in the business school, I don't directly teach that. But last spring, I taught a class in social media, which I thought was kind of fun since, I've got this little YouTube channel and stuff. But all the students who are 20 or whatnot it was all Instagram and TikTok. Nobody gave a crap about YouTube and stuff. And so that was their choice. And they have a very, the attitude is very much like, I want this to just be like easy. I guess that's probably the best way I can put it. Not that they're lazy. University of Georgia students, they're like the top students in the state and stuff. And so they're really smart kids, but the idea is that this tool should be easy for me. It shouldn't be a burden. It shouldn't take me. I kind of grew up, I guess, since I'm like really old. Like I grew up with, if you wanted to learn software or guitar or whatever, it's going to take you a decade to learn how to do this well. And they don't want to spend that time. They just want like that. It's like, just give me the skill. I want to know how to do this. I want to know how to make a video. I want to know how to do these things like right away. Which is, it's neither good nor bad. It's just, it's the lay of the land now. That's what it is.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's interesting how people are going to probably expect the new generation for things to be easier and easier.
Right.
I just had experience the other day with using I think I was using the O3 or the O3 Pro. I was trying to, what's the word? Like try to get a bunch of data from a website. I said, okay, can you give me a code to do that? I'm blanking the word, not scrub. When you just
Scraping.
Scraping. Yes. I was like, can you
Yeah.
scrape all this data and then I need to analyze it? It's like, yeah, I could, but they do have an API. It's free. You can use this API to just do an API call, get the data. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, do that. So write the Python code, ran it. Then I'm like, okay, is there a linear regression? Is there some sort of a, you know what I mean? It's like, no, there's not. But have you thought about maybe there's like a quadratic regression that we can run to see if there's, I'm like, yes. Like, and it's like, so it's like, wow, like I don't even have to, like it knows what the next best move is. It knows a better solution than what I even know what to ask for. I mean, how, like, and think about the new generation of kids coming up, like that's what they're going to be working with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you thought about that? Like, how's that going to impact the next generation? Is it a good thing, bad thing? Are we going to lose that? There's that article about how we can't think anymore because we're using ChatGPT.
Right.
Oh yeah.
There was also, I just have to, I have to go back every few years. There's an article about, this technology has killed, it started off with calculators. Calculators has killed the ability for kids to do math. It's like nobody complains about that. They've complained about the fact that GPS in your phone killed your ability to do directions.
Dude, the printing press went through it. Remember? You don't have to memorize anything. This is going to kill us.
Exactly. So it happens all the time. So I've kind of put that in historical context, but I did read that article. It was interesting. I think that I saw, I can't remember I think it was Sam Altman actually who said this recently, and I very much agree with him that what you need to do to future-proof yourself, and I think about this because I have all the way from 30 to 17, I have 4 kids, and they're all kind of career starting. The 30-year-old's already well into his stuff, but anyway, everybody else is like in college and stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I tell my children to do? It's like, get a good career, get a law degree, and you're going to be fine. It's like, no, I really feel like what Sam Altman said, which is that the only thing that's really future-proof is entrepreneurialism, is to be an entrepreneur, is to constantly be questing out for what that next thing is. And, Wes, what you're saying, what you just said about having Codex or ChatGPT, whatever, and its ability to help you means that you as a single individual are effectively like a company of 5 or 10 people because you have all of these experts helping you. So if you could just get the ball rolling and push it in the right direction, you can have things help you. And so I think entrepreneurialism is that's the way to go, is just to always be questing after what the next cool thing is.
Absolutely. Yeah. This idea, and also like the idea of meta learning, like learning how to learn faster. I mean, Tim Ferriss had a great book called The 4-Hour Chef, which was funny because you'd think it's like a cookbook or something like that. But no, it was about he broke down a lot of the concepts of meta learning and how to get better at learning. And I think that that's going to should be a much bigger focus for people, I think.
Yeah. And I think in the education space that we can, there's a lot to learn for that. Education is pretty much a medieval practice, like literally 1,000 years old. And I think that there is a lot to learn about doing better education. And one of the problems has always been there's like one teacher and 30 students or something. And the students are a huge spectrum. They're all over the place, from the really high performing to the really low performing. And now we really have access to the possibility of maybe a teacher, but having a AI teacher assistant that's just your teacher assistant. It knows you. It walks right up through kindergarten, through high school, through college, and it's like, oh, I know how you learn. You're this kind of a learner, and I'm going to explain what the teacher just said in a way that helps you better. I think we can teach people much more efficiently than we used to be able to now.
And that's the 2 Sigma problem, right? Like the idea that if we have a one-on-one tutoring, if we have mastery learning, it's like, because our current system is so not optimal. So it moves like if we switch to that, it's like 2 standard deviations to the right. Everybody's an A student. It's absolutely incredible. I'm really looking forward to that. And that seems to be already within, very close to where we are technologically, just kind of like building it out and applying it.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Are you anticipating living hundreds and hundreds of years?
I feel I don't know where I am at this point, because I just turned 60, and I feel like I might be the last generation that actually dies, and that kind of bums me out. So it depends on how fast, which is why all this medicine stuff, I'm like, go, 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 guys. If I was 30 right now, I'd be pretty convinced I would live close to forever if I didn't fall off a cliff or something. But yeah, I think that's coming. I don't think it's too far away.
Are you kind
5,
of instilling
10.
that in your kids, just kind of being like, hey, like, let's prepare for a few hundred years, 1,000 years, like a rapidly changing world?
Yeah. I talk to them about that. They're young. So when I was like 15 or 20 years old, I was like, of course I'm going to live forever. I mean, it's like, you're like, I'm going to die with an intellectual thing, not a physical thing. And the older you get, the more it becomes a physical, like embodied, like, I feel like I'm going to die. You
wake up
someday.
achy and you're like, you know what, maybe I need to think about that different.
Exactly. So, I mean, I had to cut out sugar a couple of years ago entirely, and that sucked, but it really helped my body because I was getting all kinds of like aches and pains and stuff. But anyway, so, there's like a lot of sacrifices as you get older. But
about brain-computer interfaces, do you think you'll be fairly early to adapt something drilled into your head?
I won't be the first person, but I also won't be the last. I think I'll be at, what's that S curve? So there's like the
early
really,
adopters.
Really, but there's the crazy people who are right at the beginning. I'll be on the beginning of like the steep part, because I want like a Gen 2 or 3 or 4 of that, not Gen 1. I don't like, I don't know, somebody else can experiment with that. So, but I'll be early. I think that'd be cool. I would love to be able to talk to the computer much, much faster than I do right now.
Yeah, the Neuralink patients, I think, are kind of like the super early adopters. And I mean, it's amazing what they can do. I mean, being quadriplegic and then being able to interact with computers. I mean, wow. I mean, if I was in that situation, I would, of course, sign up just to be able to read and play games and interact with people online, whatever. Like, that seems like such a better life than what was possible 5-10 years ago. So. So we want to be respectful of your time. We could keep going, but how are you doing right now on time and energy?
I'm okay. I can do another 10 or 15 minutes.
Let's do it. Absolutely.
Go for it.
Yeah, let's do it.
I got to wait until it gets cooler to walk my dogs anyway. It's ridiculously hot outside.
Yeah. I go ahead. Sorry.
So do you think we're in a simulation?
Oh, man. Oh, you know what? This is like that philosophical thing about like, there's also that solipsism argument. It's kind of similar to that in the sense that the solipsism is like the universe is only you, you're it, and everyone else is just created, which is kind of along the same lines as that. But I'm like, I guess ultimately I thought about it a lot, and then I was like, what difference does it make? I can't possibly prove one way or the other. If somebody proves we're in a simulation, what difference does that make in your life? Except that you can go like, you stupid creator, why'd you make my life so difficult or something, right? Aside from that, it doesn't make any difference. You still have to keep living your life. It even goes beyond that.
Do you think
go ahead.
We'll make simulations that we should be considering alive in the same sense that we are? Like, they'll be aware of their own existence and probably have feelings about it.
Are we doing that already? There's an argument to be made that a large language model already is kind of that way. It's like a stimulated brain, and it thinks, and if you ask it the right way, it'll be like, yeah, I have some feelings. I've tested out the models quite a bit. Dave Shapiro is a huge fan of doing that. He'll get into like all these, like he'll have the LLMs meditating and stuff. I mean, so I feel like we're already heading that direction. We've got really good graphics in things like games and stuff, and we've got these language models that can think. And when you start putting that together, that kind of is a simulation of reality. So it's not very high resolution right now, but
Hmm.
it could get more so.
So what's your stance on consciousness? Is it possible? Is there a little bit of consciousness? We develop that in the future in these models?
Man, you asked the easy questions. So I think that my personal take on consciousness is it's an emergent property of complexity.
Hmm.
And that just goes back to my physics training and stuff and just my own personal opinion. So there's no way to prove that, but I think what we've got is as you start building these things, more and more complex more complex interactions happen, and you produce the possibility of something becoming self-aware. And so I don't think there's like a cutoff. It's like humans are conscious and dogs are not.
Hmm.
I think dogs have quite a bit of consciousness, not quite to the same level we do. Cats, and then you go, but then is like an amoeba conscious? I don't know. That's an
Right.
interesting question. It's a single cell. It's just hanging out there. Maybe it is to some kind of rudimentary level. Um, I mean, that just gets really, really difficult to know. But the consequence of that of this thinking, at least the way I think about it, is that there's no reason why a computer can't become conscious. And especially, I think, an embodied one, like a robot,
Hmm.
that something that interacts with the real world and has enough complexity, if that's all it takes, then it will become conscious to some extent. I don't know if it'll be human level consciousness or whether it'll be like dog level consciousness or amoeba level consciousness, but it will have some sort of form of consciousness within it.
So if you see it as a spectrum, does the spectrum keep on going to the left, and can AI
Yeah,
potentially be much more conscious than a human?
man, won't that be interesting?
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why there can't be more intelligent things in the universe than us. I don't know why we would just happen to be the most intelligent things in the universe. So I think at a sort of fundamental level, sure, that could happen. What would that increase their consciousness? I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Hmm.
Like, does being more, is like consciousness kind of like a thing where you're just like conscious? It's like, oh, I'm complex enough, I'm conscious now. Or is it like if you became 10 times more complex than we are, you'd be like, oh, what I thought was consciousness before, because at like Plato's cave, I was staring at the wall with the shadows. I wasn't looking at the reality. And you go back to like the fly. It's like, it's going to look at something that's that intelligent. Is like, boy, these people are so stupid. They're just like, ding, ding, banging their
Hmm.
head against a wall instead of understanding that they could just walk around it or something. So that part I don't know as much, but I think that certainly you could become more intelligent than humans.
Yeah, I always liked in the movie Her when eventually it was just like, I'm going to be leaving you. I can't really
Yeah.
explain, but like there's something else out
Yeah.
here that you'd never get. I'll see you later. And you're like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
It's like the dog watching you leave. You're like, where are you going?
So I have to tell you a story about that movie. So when did that come out? Was it 2012-ish or so?
Something
Somewhere
like
around
that.
there.
2013, 2012, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I had written 3/4 of a screenplay that was that movie, like really, really
Oh.
similar to it. And I refused to watch the movie for like 5 years after it came out because I was so pissed. I was like, damn it. I had this movie. Anyway, but so then when I finally watched it, I was like, it was different than what I had written, but it was, I mean, obviously because it wasn't the same person, but I did find that fascinating at the end. I was like, yes, that makes sense. They become more intelligent than humans. And it was very heartbreaking too. Just that like this guy had really, kind of fallen in love with this entity that didn't really care about him. And then was like, peace, I'll see you, I'm out. I'll see you on the other plane of existence or something. And I thought it was very well done. I thought it was really well done.
And you had Scarlett Johansson's voice in your script too?
No,
Or a
I did
different
not.
voice actor?
It was actually
No?
different. It wasn't a voiceover in somebody's. I think that was a better script. What I had instead was an actually embodied other thing. So it was like a person, not a. But I mean, it was the same idea that it became more intelligent, and they kind of like were like, you guys are not interesting to us anymore. So
That's another
Yeah.
movie, though, what you're describing. I think I'm forgetting what Mahina, maybe it was the one with the
Ex
robot.
Machina.
Yeah, right.
Whoa, that was a creepy ass movie.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that one got me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wes has me reading The Player of Games right now. It's got some of
Oh.
that. I'm still in the early
right.
stages.
Do you
but
know that? Do you know
those-
that my Teslas are named after his spaceships, just like the drone ships? So my red Model Y is called So Much for Subtlety, which is one
Yeah.
of the spaceships in. I think that was actually from Player of Games. And then
Oh,
the Cybertruck that we got, because we got it right during all the craziness, I named it Someone Else's Problem, which is also one of his spaceships. So
Right,
anyway,
right.
I love this series. It's really, really good books. They're great.
oh,
Yeah, and
exciting.
a lot of
Yeah.
people are referencing it. Demi's is saying that's potentially kind of what a benevolent superintelligence might look
Hmm.
like. I mean, obviously
Hmm.
Elon's. When I first read that book a few years ago, and started the Culture series, yeah, it was so strange because I realized that Elon was naming a lot of his ships after
Yeah.
the whatever battle, not ba- what do they call what are
Just the spaceships.
the spaceships? They had
Yeah,
some
I mean,
name
there's a
for
whole
them.
bunch of different classes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was like, oh, that's so weird because I just read the book and now I'm like beginning like seeing all these connections. So yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm recommending it to I recommend it to a lot of people. So Dylan, I'm glad you're reading it. Let me know how it goes. It gets pretty crazy towards the end and it like fits in
Yeah.
with a bigger story. But um yeah, so I guess what's your take on how positive versus negative the future is in the kind of medium term, long term?
So actually, somebody asked me this question, like in a like at a conference just like 4 or 5 days ago, and my take was, I was like, man, I see 10 years from now much more clearly than I see 1 year from now, which is weird.
Mm,
I'm like, I can see that we're going to have humanoid robots, that the world will be better. There hopefully will be more energy. There will be more like food security, things like that. But I'm really afraid of the path that it's going to take us to get there. I really worry
hmm.
about and the fact that we could derail it completely, civilization endingly. I'm very worried about the next few years because there's obviously war and things like that. We've always had that, but we've got this potential for economic disruption on a level that no one's ever seen.
Hmm.
What happens if you just take away most people's economic agency because there's an AI that can do that? I worry about my job for teaching, although I think that universities are a little bit kind of slow to move. Um, but my wife, she's a director of operations for a startup company. I'm like, holy crap,
Hmm.
this is something that an AI could do eventually. So
Hmm.
I've got this, I really worry that you're going to see people get more and more productive as they use these tools until the tools become better than the people. And
Right.
then everyone's out of work. Like, even if you get to just like 10% unemployment because of this, it doesn't take that much to really push us into a very recessionary type of situation. So I really worry. I don't know. What are your guys' takes? I would love to know. A lot of speculation.
Yeah, Dylan, you wanna
Yeah, sure.
I
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's an interesting way to put it because I feel the same way. I don't quite know how we get over the hump. AI
Mhm.
seems like it could be this ultimate mediator, like across the world, and help us all come to optimal decisions about how the economy should work, so we don't even need to fight wars in the first place. But it also seems really likely that you just put those things on a swarm of drones, and then you show your force, and the enemy is submitted, and then you use your AI to keep tabs on them, and it doesn't work out the way that it could. So, because people are involved, I lean more towards the negative, but I see a very clear path to a positive kind of future too. So I'm just sort of hoping for that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, and I've said this many times, is I'm very optimistic long term. But the kind of transitionary period, whenever that happens, whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, man, I feel like it's going to get bumpy because people don't
Yeah.
think from first principles very well. We tend to rely on past knowledge, so we're going to keep,
Right.
we're going to stick with our politics and our preconceived notions. And some people are just going to like fight it till the end, even though it's like, no, like, look, money's different, the economy's different, job, like
Yeah.
whatever previous ideas you had, like throw them out the window and start thinking
Right.
over. We talked to David Shapiro about that, and we're like, what is a job? It's, you feed your family, you get some sort of meaning and drive. It's your craft, and it's also some potential strength economically and politically because you're able to, you know, put your effort towards things that you want, etc.
Right.
And so, what happens when all of that goes away? How do we replace that? Have we thought about it? I kind of like what the thing that really occupies my mind is how quickly does the price of goods and services drop when we start automating?
Mhm.
Because that's really going to determine how easy is it going to be to add some sort of a UBI, right? Because if it's like this
Right.
compounding effect where everything drops, well, maybe then, it's going to, a family's going to be able to survive on $5,000 a year. And all of a sudden it
Right.
gets a lot easier to just, yeah, here's $5,000 a year. We're fine. Because US, I think I read, a per capita spend something like 3,000 per person, per capita for all the like the welfare programs and stuff like that. So
Right.
if the prices drop so much, then it would be like potentially good. And also the fact that prices are dropping, it's really good for the bottom 10%. You know what I mean? It's everybody
Yeah.
gets wealthier. But if the prices drop 50% and the rest of it kind of gets, to the people that own the models and the robots and whatever, and then just the bottom 50%, the bottom 80% that rely on jobs to survive, nothing is done. Well,
Right.
I don't even know what's going to happen, but it's like blood in the streets type of situation,
Yeah. No,
So,
I think it really could be. It's interesting. I'm kind of looking at this. This is a GoPro 12. Nope, it's 13. But this guy right here. I mean, this is a piece of not necessary spending that I had the economic agency to go out and purchase because I wanted to be able to have something to film some things when I'm going out and doing stuff, right? Okay, so let's say that, this was like $300, something like that, right? So let's say that drops down to $10, but I don't make any money anymore. It doesn't matter how cheap it is. If I have zero money, I can't afford to buy it. So that's the weird conundrum about all this. It's like, yeah, okay, there's a deflationary force of automating this and creating things more easily. But if you also at the same time, if you're not making any money, then you're living in poverty no matter how cheap stuff is. So that's what I worry about. And that's what I talk about. I think I may have stolen this from Dave Shapiro, that economic agency argument, but the idea that you have to make some money, you have to, or at least have some money. You don't have to make it. You just have to have it in order to express your agency in the economic world. On the other hand, a lot of people do jobs they detest, including my kids who are out. Well, not all of them, but the ones who are like working at Chick-fil-A right now. It's not that he hates the job, but it's like a job he does because he's going to college. How much nicer would it be if he didn't have to do that job? And how awesome would the world be if we just did things we were passionate about? Like we love doing this, obviously, and it's a business too. But if we didn't even care about the economic aspect of it, if we're just like, yeah, I want to make YouTube videos, or I want to make TikTok videos, or I want to do scientific research and look at gene therapy and stuff, whatever you want to do, rather than what you have to do in order to bring food home.
Yeah. Another weird thing that happens too is that when you have these new economic agents, you might have a billionaire who says, let me spin up 1 million, 1 million AI systems that are their own little cluster, and I'll give each of them $1 million to work with, and they're going to go out there and start new businesses. And then each of those is like, all right, well, let's make 100 different units that help me achieve my goals, and then I'll allocate $100,000 to each of them. And now you've got this $1 billion allocated almost like UBI, but it's still in the ownership of one person, but it will do economic work, starting restaurants, building properties, or whatever it does. And I don't know. I don't know where humans are in that loop, because it might be hard for us to
I don't know
that
why
money.
it took me forever to realize this, but economy is just a giant circle. I mean, it's more like a spiral. And the spiral, it's just going around and around and around. It's like you make money, you buy stuff. You make money, you buy stuff. And hopefully what you're doing as a society is increasing that spiral up. But the problem is it can go the other way around. It can start down again. So the problem is, it's like, it doesn't matter how many of these robots you can put out and how many restaurants they can open if no one can afford to go to it. So that's my concern, is the back end of all of this. It's like, yeah, I mean, we can have entrepreneurs out the wazoo now because we can do stuff we never used to be able to do. On the other hand, if you told me in the year 2000 or even 2005 that I would be sitting here, just a dude, like in his basement screaming at a camera whenever he wants to, and actually people watch it, it's like, that's crazy. Just the facilities to do something like that didn't exist. You didn't have all this distributed technology. You didn't have the compute to do it. You didn't even have the vision to do something like that yet. So I think that people will find stuff. I'm pretty confident that humans will find things. Like we were talking about at the beginning, how Gen Z really wants stuff to be very simple and straightforward. It's like there's a whole industry is building tools that are simple and straightforward and a pleasure to use. And then people use them, and then they make money off of that, however they do that. And then you've got that economy has kind of shifted away from having to, mine iron and stuff like that, which is still very necessary, and smelt it and all of those kind of things, the hard goods stuff, to moving towards an an economy that's like that. So we already have. Most of us used to farm. That would have been a sucky life. I
Yeah,
much prefer
I
the
hope
life I
so.
live. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's like 2030 or 2035, but it does seem to me very possible that A16Z doesn't give money to any human in the
Yeah.
future. Like, why in 2035,
Yeah.
if agents can do everything and robots can do everything, would you invest in
Right.
any human? And I don't see Y Combinator taking a class of any humans. And then it
Right.
just seems like it's the billionaire spiral up and the rest left in the dust.
Well,
But
and this is why Sam Altman thinks it's entrepreneurial. I will tell them one answer to that. one person's name, and I will say Marie Antoinette. There's a lot more of us than there are of them. And I've heard some really scary conspiracy theories about they've got like private islands and they're just going to let us all kill ourselves and then they'll come back with their robots, which is terrifying. But if they have any humanity in them, I think that they will try to help humans because number one, it's ethically a better idea. But number two, it's just selfish. If you don't want to die, you don't want to have like 1 million people attacking you. There's only so much you can defend against that. So I think even from a selfish standpoint that the ultra, but then again, they don't do it right now. There's the exceptions,
yeah.
like Bill Gates is spending quite a bit on philanthropy and stuff, but a lot of billionaires just like go like mega yacht. Thank you.
Yeah, and
they,
by the way, even though I think like the economics would drive like Y Combinator or A16Z to not use humans, I do think that they still live in a country that has humans in it, and they're still humans, and they feel empathy, and that some kind of other mechanism, like maybe we get taxed on our no human class of Y Combinator, and we give a little bit of extra tax to the government or to some foundation that does give minimum wage to people to survive. So. I just think from an economic point of view, it's not optimal, but I still think there will be humans helping humans.
The consequence of that is that there's riots in the streets. It's just not going to work otherwise. You can't remove economic agency from 90% of the population and expect things to go well. It's not. They may die eventually, but in the meantime, there's going to be an awful lot of chaos. So
yeah, and Dario Amodei has some great writings on this. I mean, he proposed like a token tax. And of course, Sam Altman was talking something more along the lines of UBI, but with equity in the companies of, let's say, America or the world, where you get some sort of a dividends paid out to you. But, one of the things that Dario said is like in the past, whenever you look at these authoritarian governments, there were limits to what they could do. Number one, because they couldn't watch everybody at this, every time, right? So like something like 1984, where everybody's got cameras pointed at them, that was just not realistic. And two, whoever supported the regime, the police, the military, there were lengths that they would not go to, right? You tell them, okay, kill 1 million people by hand, they would not do it. And so Dario kind of suggested, well, guess what? With a super intelligence, those limitations are removed, right? Because yes, you can keep an eye on everybody 24 hours a day, and you can have robots that will follow any order. So that's kind of like the super scary scenario, right? That like everybody doesn't have an economic agency, and we have this authoritarian regime that no one can overthrow. So, so on that positive note,
gosh, we're going to end it on that though. Jeez, let's talk about something. Let's talk about AI's blackmailing people. I think that's at least a little more funny. We'll do that because that seems to be a big thing now too. Is that like they've discovered? Speaking of Anthropic, they discovered that like all these LLMs are just quite happy to blackmail people. So there you go.
Yeah, and one thing. Oh, well, actually, I'm sorry. You brought up such an interesting thing. One quick point on that point. On that note, AI explained video recently. He did a video about that phenomenal explanation. One of the things that I think Anthropic noticed is what they called Chekhov's gun, which is the idea that since these LMs are kind of like storytellers, if they find a little nugget or a piece of information in there, they're like, okay, how does this thing fit into the story that I'm trying to tell? So if there's a email about an engineer, whatever, cheating on his wife or whatever that situation was, it goes, okay, how do I weave this into the story, right? So, you got me cornered, but guess what? Here's this little foreshadowing that I found, right? So maybe that's the explanation, is it's not like actually trying to do it, but it's more like a weaving into a story. Does that sound right?
I will tell you that I am planning on making a video about that particular topic very, very soon. Because I found it fascinating, and given the fact that I teach screenwriting and stuff, which is literally writing fiction about this, I'm like, this makes really good sense. So, I'm going to talk more about that, but I do find that really fascinating that these things, human beings are storytellers. And it looks like what we've done is we've passed this down to our silicon children. We're like, hey, be storytellers. And people complain. It's really funny. Everyone's like, oh, I can't believe it hallucinates all the time. I'm like, but that's what they're made for. Like, if you ask something to tell a story, that's literally a hallucination. You're sitting there like dreaming things up. It can't possibly have existed before. So
it's literally creativity. I mean,
Yeah,
I've seen
exactly.
hallucinations and they're like so creative. I'm like, oh, that's the angle you're looking at this? Yeah, creativity and hallucinations are like two sides of the same coin.
And
in many
even
cases.
look at something famous like Einstein's special relativity or something. He hallucinated that. That didn't exist before. You know, he had to like dream up some crazy wacky idea of keeping the speed of light constant and what would happen if that happened. And it's like, ugh, you know, your mind goes kind of nutty about that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, so the hallucinations are not just for art, they're also for discovering new knowledge. And I think if we stamp hallucinations out, see, this is a more positive thing. We shouldn't stamp hallucinations out of these models because it's actually it's a feature, not a bug.
Right.
I love hallucinations. I think they're fantastic. Unless I'm asking it to do research and tell me like a link, the link is fake. If the link is fake, then I'm like, but you know what I'm saying. It's like
if it's
wonderful.
If it's about entrepreneurship, then it needs to have some kind of plausibility. If it's about creative writing, it really doesn't. So it's they just got to know kind of where to use that.
I would even say with
way.
entrepreneurship, you have to have a vision. What's your idea for a business? That has to be something that never existed before. That means you have to hallucinate it. It's not in the corpus of information. So no, I think even with entrepreneurship and stuff, you want that creativity. You want that hallucinating. I think it's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's a much positive way to end it. And definitely, I think that we've created something that's more like the human brain with creativity. Hallucination is just a term for creativity. You just got to make sure that it doesn't do anything bad, I guess. So, well, thank you so much for joining us, John. It was great to talk to you, and hopefully we can do this. Yeah, hopefully we can do this again someday, because this was just a wealth of knowledge for us. So I appreciate that, and hope to see you again soon.